It's been a week since we had the announcement, and now we got some information here. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Now it's been a week since they announced Pixagon 2, and a week after we got a few batch of FAQs, a few frequently asked questions here, with these questions receiving a response. There's only a few questions here, so let's just get to it. Now let's start off with question number 1 here. I've already mentioned this question in the last video that I made, if you haven't seen it yet. To give a refresher here, the first question talks about what will happen with Pixagon 3D once Pixagon 2 gets released. Since apparently for a lot of people they assume that Pixagon 3D would either be shut down or practically be replaced with Pixagon 2. However, the developers did give some fortunate news, that being that Pixagon 3D will not be replaced with Pixagon 2, as they will both coexist, with both games simultaneously growing over time and for some reason making a pixel universe. Might as well want to call it a PGU. Moving on to the second question, which talks about microtransactions, which was another point that I mentioned in my last video, which many people have so many doubts after the announcement. Obviously, with the way that the developers handle with this game, it will probably be the same way as for the second game. However, with the way that the game is in terms of microtransactions, it's not as bad as you probably think. But anyways, that question was sent, and it was answered with the Pixagon 2 will be a lot more different than Pixagon 3D, focusing more on skill-based, fair balance, and a more better in-game economy. Now, take it as you can, we're not necessarily sure the developers will follow through that, but if they will, then that would be very impressive. For most players, they need to see it to believe it. Third question, which is pretty quick and simple, that being is Pixagon 2 is going to be available on mobile devices, with it receiving a pretty simple response, that being that it would be included as well. Yes, no sign for a console port then. Damn. But anyways, towards the fourth question here, which mainly talks about Pixagon 2's anti-cheat, in which they claim that the anti-cheat for Pixagon 2 will be a lot more advanced than, say, for Pixagon 3D. It's really another see it to believe it type of thing, where we just gotta see how that would go with, is it really gonna be more better, or is it gonna be the same way as Pixagon 3D is in? And we're left with the last question of the batch here, that being about data transferring from Pixagon 3D to Pixagon 2. There are some unfortunate news, being that since Pixagon 2 is a different game than Pixagon 3D, your stuff from Pixagon 3D won't transfer to 2. Now this is a bit of a 50-50 here in my opinion. Obviously, since you can't transfer your stuff from Pixagon 3D to 2, practically the items that you have from Pixagon 3D would just be locked to Pixagon 3D. However, I do feel this would benefit for all players. Hear me out. Since your items from Pixagon 3D won't transfer to Pixagon 2, this will allow players to practically start off fresh. This won't allow players who play Pixagon 3D to have most of their items practically being available once they download the game, compared to a newer player that probably never played the game. Could you imagine trying to go against a player that practically has like the most broken loadout from Pixagon 3D into Pixagon 2? It does give the player an advantage against other players that haven't played or hasn't necessarily gotten the stuff from Pixagon 3D. But as mentioned from the first question, Pixagon 3D will still receive updates and support, so you can still get to come back to it anytime. But anyways, that's pretty much it for now. That's pretty much what the first batch of FAQs have practically introduced here. With there being only 5 at the moment, we'll probably get more FAQs later down the line. I'll keep you guys updated as soon as possible. Can't really do it same day. But anyways, hope this video was informative, and that's gonna do for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, que hace buen día, noche, o cuando estás viendo este video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.